So let me introduce you to our presenter, Deborah Harris. It's my pleasure to introduce you to her, a multilingual and passionate facilitator known for her innovative approach to learning. She's the visionary founder of ICU Learning, which was established in 2023. Deborah brings over 16 years of diverse experience in learning and development across various industries, including healthcare, pharmaceutical manufacturing, medical devices, supply chain, and higher ed. Her unwavering dedication to crafting holistic, intentional, and immersive learning environments ensures that every individual feels understood, seen, and valued. As the executive director of the nonprofit ICU Community Organization, NFP, and a contracted instructor for Harper Business College, Deborah exemplifies a deep commitment to inclusivity and transformative learning. Currently pursuing her SHRM certificate, she continues to elevate the standards of education and community engagement. Everybody, please join me in welcoming the inspiring Deborah Harris and her session Exploring Inclusion, Barriers, Burdens, and Breakthroughs. Deborah, I'm going to go ahead and hide myself from the screen and let you take it away.
I appreciate you so much, Louis. I've I hear an echo, so I don't know if you hear an echo. Can you let me know in the chat if there's an echo for you? Okay, there is an echo, so, I don't know if you can fix that a little bit because it might be distracting to everyone.
Hey, Deborah, check to see if maybe you have another tab that might have AirMeet open or if there's anything else.
Okay.
Just double check. Usually that can be the cause.
Alright, let me check right now.
And it was cutting out a little bit too, yeah, as Molly mentioned.
How does that sound?
Much better.
Yay, we figured out the problem.
That's
Okay.
it. All right.
Wonderful. So now we can get started. Oh, my friends. I don't even know who you are, and I really already consider you my friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Deborah Harris, and I don't know if you are looking at my calendar right now. So let me switch screens. And he already introduced me in such a beautiful way. I just want to give a special shout out and thank you to Lewis for organizing this for the last 4 years. I have had the honor of speaking at AIDC. Now, this is my second year, and I'm very passionate about the work that all the speakers and even you are doing. So, I just want to give you a round of applause. And that's why I consider you my friends, because you're carving time out to find out how you can show up for people in a very beautiful and intentional way. And oh, that makes my heart sing. To introduce me, for those who may not necessarily see me, I identify as a Caribbean American woman with tri-colored hair today. That could be different tomorrow, as if I'm in like a witness protection program. I change my hair all the time. But today it is ombre with dark brown, light brown, and highlighted tips. I am wearing a black tank top. I have caramel colored skin with dark brown eyes and a nose ring that my mom is not very happy about. And I want to say this: as the season changes, as the world turns, language changes about inclusion and it gets more and more sophisticated. And as you've learned throughout the week, there is so much to learn about how we show up for others. But the last time I checked, inclusion does not start with you, it begins with I. And so I want to create a safe space with you, all my friends, to talk about what it's been like for us. What barriers are we experiencing? What burdens come with this work before we even see the breakthroughs, right? I want to create a space today, these next 35, 40 minutes, to talk about you and to talk about me and our shared experiences. Hopefully, we can find some common ground of what barriers are we running into when trying to do this inclusion work, right? What burdens are we carrying around that we either know about or we don't know about that we need to acknowledge so that we can either shed them off or take some time out for ourselves and say, okay, let me find ways to recharge. because I'm carrying this backpack around and it's starting to really feel heavy. And the fact of the matter is, I personally don't always feel safe to say that. It just sounds very selfish to be like, man, this inclusion work. Oh my gosh. Like it's heavy stuff. It's so serious. But the fact of the matter is, it is. Can we talk about that? Can we create a space today where we can talk about what it's been like for us? Tell me how you feel about being a little vulnerable today in this 30 minutes to talk about you. I I explore burdens on a regular basis as a mom, right? I'm a mom of 3 boys. I am based out of Crystal Lake, Illinois, and if you and I become friends, I wanna know where I gotta fly to for us to have brunch and have some real conversation. So I saw some Californians in the audience. Where else are we logging in from today where you're going to be vulnerable? Yes, Orlando. Listen, Courtney, I used to live in Orlando, and I love it there, and fun fact, I work at Disney. Rhode Island, Nebraska, Texas. Alaska is one of my favorite places. I'm a little biased about Alaska. Okay. Dublin, Ireland. Oh, Margaret. Oh, I'm taking that trip first. Okay. Hello. I've heard so many beautiful things about Ireland. Canada, St. Pete. Oh my gosh. Welcome, everybody. This is where all the work is being done. All the places, boy, mom in South Carolina, all the places that you're all sharing what you've learned this past week. This is where you're creating impact. And there are some breakthroughs in creating that kind of impact that replenishes your purpose. And we're going to talk about those. But for one moment, as we become friends throughout this, I want to share something since we're talking about people from all over the place. Let me go ahead and quote an Australian educator who was asked what inclusion meant to them. They said, it's the feeling that I can offer respectfully a perspective that is different without the fear of being called names or being called out. I sometimes feel excluded by those who advocate for inclusive practices. That was such a raw and real and unfiltered response by this educator that it really shaped my thought process of inclusion. I'm an empath naturally. So when I went to watch Deadpool and Wolverine this past week, I cried at that. Okay. No spoilers. I won't tell you why I cried. And we still don't know why Thor cried. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Listen, I felt her emotion and I felt her realness. And I was like, man, that is the approach I need to take to this presentation today because I don't know that we talk enough about it. I don't know that we share how we feel excluded, even in spaces that we're supposed to feel safe and included. So I'm going to ask you in the chat to take a moment to describe when you felt like you were excluded or you did not feel included in a supposed inclusive space. And you don't necessarily have to say where it was or when it happened, but this is happening everywhere, right? Just like the educator in Australia, she was probably in a space where she thought she can share her thoughts and her perspective, and boom, she got called out. Gabriella said, school as a student, as an international student, and then as a bilingual educator. Mm. When I'm excluded from the conversation, didn't feel like I belonged in the ERG being an adoptee. Oh, that's interesting, Carrie. In a conversation about different communication modes, all the modes were very neurotypical biased. And more than likely, the person who created that content was neurotypical biased, right? They didn't really um, lean in and get any type of perspective from someone who can share a different angle. Yeah. What else? As a woman living overseas and studying in the university, that could be challenging. When we're talking about different opinions, I'm told mine doesn't matter. Ooh, flat out, Gabrielle? That's bold. When there are hybrid meetings, some online and some in person, I feel often excluded, if not face to face. Yep. And it may not be that I don't want to be in person, I may not be able to. So my thoughts don't seem as respected. Interestingly enough, the hybrid, model was supposed to make everyone feel included wherever they were, but oftentimes those who are in person forget to address those who are virtual, right? And they really are hyper focused on the people that are in person, and it totally excludes the virtual audience. So I felt that too. Older, not included in many things, led by younger people in a group. Yes. I don't know, Penny, that we talk enough about that, right? Some generational gaps in certain workplaces and how we're so progressive in so many things, but we really need to consider all the different age groups that exist and how their voices and experiences are just as valuable as we're making these progressive movements in inclusion as well. Absolutely. I was told not to talk about my recent ADHD diagnosis so people wouldn't have a negative view of me by my boss. Look at all the different ways that we're feeling excluded. And all of you are people who are advocates of inclusion. So, can you imagine what that comes in with? And we're going to talk about what that comes with. Personally, my moment of feeling excluded or when my needs are an afterthought and a burden to the employer. An example I'd like to share with you is when I had one of my children, I actually was working at a manufacturing place, a pharmaceutical manufacturing company, and it was very male dominant. So they did not have a lactation room. And I had to walk across like I wanna say it was a 10-15 minute walk before I got to the nearest restroom where I would have that kind of privacy that I needed, and yet and still it was not accommodating, and I finally found another woman who was also nursing, and her and I had to put a whole proposal together of why a lactation room was necessary in that space. But man, did we have to do that? Yeah, it really turned into some sort of corporate activism situation. And all we wanted to do was have some bottles for our babies when we got home. And that served as such a challenge for us. The more that I learn, and I don't know if you feel this way, the more I want to share. And inclusion work is fulfilling, right? It helps me become a better parent, it helps me become a better friend, family member, but that's in my own household. Okay, that's in my little microcosm that I created for myself. Once myself or my son step out of that world that we've created in our household, we face it's a wall climb. We face vertical walls. We don't have handholds. Okay, we got to search for diverse routes to avoid conflict as if we are climbing, rock climbing through this world that we live in. And these can serve as barriers. Systemic barriers surround us. Let's talk about them. All right. Familial. And I really am curious about all the different cultures, considering where all of you are logging in from. But there are some cultural expectations that are set by our families, right? Some strong traditions. And those traditions and expectations, they tend to prioritize fitting in rather than embracing diversity or the complete opposite. And then it becomes this, right? Oh my goodness. I had so many culture shocks that, like I told you at the beginning of this, I'm a Caribbean American woman. So my mom is from Cuba, my dad's from Haiti. And there were a lot of culture clashes with the conversation of inclusion. I didn't know it was inclusion at the time, right? But just trying to express myself and the challenges that I had in my school, they didn't get it. Um, and so there was some lack of encouragement there and lack of support. Not intentionally, right? It just came with not knowing. Then there are some educational barriers. I don't know where you all grew up or what that was like for you, but I grew up in Massachusetts and our curriculum was very narrow. Um, there was not a wide range of perspectives or decision makers that had to do with the curriculum. And so there are certain cultures and identities that I didn't really get exposure to until I went to college and I started to travel. And exposure is very important when it comes to gaining understanding and broadening our perspectives. And so, the narrow curriculum and accessibility challenges that exist in certain schools where they're not necessarily providing for those who have disabilities until after the fact, right? That can become a barrier. The societal barriers, I literally do not have enough time to talk about, okay? But as an overarching umbrella, we all experience stereotypes and biases. I mean, my goodness, when I was researching biases, there are 180, okay, that live in our society and that got bred from just people's, you know, subjected view or stereotypes that they have, and it shapes how we interact with one another. It shapes our thoughts of people and how we perceive reality. And these systemic patterns, they influence our judgment and our behavior, and that's societal. And that's why we're all here today, right? And that's why we have been here all week, is because we're trying to really deprogram and everything that we've been fed and taught and learned and picked up through society and education. And then many of us have also run into organizational barriers where either there are some weak diversity efforts, so there's that resistance, or even performative, right? Oh, okay. The trend now is DEI. So we're going to have a DEI program. Yeah. Oh, it's waning off. Oh, people are not as excited about DEI. Okay, let's get rid of our DEI department and get rid of our DEI efforts. I mean, organizations are much more reactive and a lot less, you know, I want to say immersed. And this is my perspective. I'm not saying this is fact, but I just feel like people like you are the reason why this movement continues and the work continues, is because if we were to leave it up to an organization alone, there's just not enough buy-in to feed it budgetarily, right? And really, really make the necessary change. Here are some other examples of barriers that we may experience, and it varies, right? But by understanding them, we could take ownership. And when we take ownership, we can advocate for change and work together to overcome them. But that local versus global mindset, that's a critical barrier. I remember linking up with someone through LinkedIn. Yes, I have coffee chats through LinkedIn. And the woman was from Nigeria, and I was talking to her about DEI efforts, and she's like, "What's diversity?" And she's like, "All of us are Black." I don't know what you mean. And then I had to reintroduce her to intersectionality and all the other ways she may be experiencing, um, non-inclusive behaviors. So then we started talking about gender and socioeconomic status and all the things, and she started realizing, "Oh my gosh, that's that's why I had to fight for my promotion," and that, misinformed, right? Or having a dominant culture and not realizing that there's so much more out there, ignoring commonalities. And some issues are louder than others. Let's face it, when people hear diversity, equity, inclusion, it's very racially motivated, but there are just so many other aspects of it that I love AIDC for exposing, especially the accessibility piece, right? I want to hear some barriers that you have faced, um, but we'll get into that right here. I want to share something with you. I launched a DEIA training and I realized they're just checking the box. They're not necessarily wanting to make change. They just want to say, hey, we did the inclusion training, y'all. We're compliant. Thanks. And we move on. And I realized, wow, this is super performative and there's no real support here. And I just want to give you some room to share in the chat with each other what type of barriers you faced when trying to implement inclusion initiatives. Being called motherly, lack of understanding about neurodiversity. And Suzanne, I'm so glad that conversation is starting to broaden, but there is a lack of understanding there for sure. Being called motherly, Margaret, can you expound on that a bit? I've noticed that when I mention DEI programs are more than just male or female or race, my ideas are not recognized. Yep. Being told it's not a strategic priority. Absolutely. Liliana, what do you mean by offer a choice to attend the training? I want to learn more about what you mean there. Leadership buy-in. Absolutely. Especially, Amy, if that leadership does not really um, showcase the kind of diversity that we need to see. Because buy-in sounds like you really have to put in work for them to even understand that it's important, right? Hmm. Yeah, continue to share all these barriers. They build up, right? And Margaret says instead of inclusion in practice can be called over caring instead of being professional. Um, and yeah, there is this notion of, and I've received this as well, of like, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells here. Like, I don't know what I can say. I don't know what I can't say. I don't know how comfortable I am anymore to speak out loud because, I might get slapped on the wrist. I've heard so many different things. And quite frankly, that's on both sides. That's for people who are advocating and those who don't. And that's where it feels like a burden, you know? Everything we just talked about can feel like a deadlift. I don't know if you all work out. It's been a while for me, but like that deadlift, when you have to go from the ground and up, it feels like a boulder on my shoulder. And though many of you in this room welcome the responsibility of inclusion, it's okay to admit that it can also feel like a burden. I used to be ashamed to say that, quite frankly. Um, because I did not want to feel like some people are saying in this chat, overly emotional or unable to control my thoughts about inclusion because I want to seem strategic and calculated and productive and like a healthy contributor in the workplace. But it does need to go both ways, and and Deborah, you're saying it right now. It's a two-sided, not two-sided, but it's a two-way street, right? And there could be a lot of burdens for individuals. What does that look like? Let's go ahead and talk about guilt. There's so much guilt with inclusion. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize what I said. I didn't mean to offend. Oh, are they going to treat me differently now? There's just all these emotions that come up, and guilt definitely results from that. How about burnout? Let me get some emotion emojis for burnout. This can be taxing, especially if You don't have the infrastructure wherever you are to support you in those efforts. And it takes its emotional toll on you because throughout the experience, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxious, your interactions are making you feel like, I don't know if I can approach this person. I want to ask, I want to be curious. That's what they told me in the inclusion training is that I need to lean into my curiosity and ask questions. But every time I ask questions, gosh, they're blowing up at me. I don't know how to ask the question. So now it's like, whoop, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and isolate myself because I don't want to continue, creating this disruption in the workplace. Quite frankly, I just want to focus on work. I don't even want to focus on all this stuff. I just want to show up, go to work, do my job well, and let people know I have the best of intentions and then go home. I see the emojis and the reactions. So you feel me. I don't know if there's some other emotions that or burdens that you all are feeling that I did not express on the screen. Feel free to throw them in the chat. All of this. Yes, Suzanne, all of this, right? All of the above. It's okay to admit it here. This is a safe space, y'all. We're friends now. Remember, I said. But there's also burdens identified in society that we run into that feed into all that individual burden, right? We've got, like I said earlier, biases, stereotypes. But then there's like conflict. Oh my gosh, don't you say something on a social media post. My goodness, let me tell you something. Those keyboard warriors, they're going to come after you. I said warriors. I'm the warrior. They're the keyboard warriors, and they will come at you. You cannot have an opinion. You cannot share your thoughts. My goodness, I am in conflict with a stranger because I have an opinion. There's discrimination. And how about the pressure? Yes. Penny, fear that you may have left someone out that you didn't design for. Oh my goodness, I didn't. And that kind of fear that you're talking about, Penny, there's nothing relatable to say, hey, I didn't even know who my audience was going to be. I was told that I needed to create this training, but I had no learner profile, no learner personas. I'm trying to consider everyone, but how challenging is that? And how much does it delay the design process? How much does it delay the content delivery? Because we've got target deadlines. And then what kind of resistance are we going to get when considering all these folks? Am I going to get resistance from my leader? Am I going to get resistance from the learners who really don't understand what approach I just took because they didn't attend AIDC, right? And not to mention all of the burdens that exist in the organizations that we work for. Let's talk about it. Minority community leaders are typically volunteers, right? Because there's this notion of, well, Deborah is a Black woman, so she can relate to certain microaggressions and certain workplace trauma that others can't. And we want to make sure her voice is included. Great. And yes, that's accurate to a certain extent. But that can be tough because Deborah, I also am juggling work, family, and the emotional labor of navigating through exclusion myself every day. And I'm speaking for myself, but I can also predict that you feel the same. And so these efforts in organizations that are minority led, that can be cumbersome. Or how about the fear of retaliation? Oh my gosh, if I stand up for my coworker, like, what is going to happen? True story. I was in a huddle, right? It was a virtual huddle, and one of my teammates was absent. And they were speaking not very favorably about this team member. And I know for a fact that they are not very vocal and they don't always stand up for themselves. And when they do, a target is on their back. So I felt the need to speak on their behalf in their absence. And boy, did I feel so much fear of like, oh man, I'm going to be treated differently. There's going to be some retaliation here, but I feel it necessary to say something because nobody else is standing up for them. That fear of retaliation is real because we I was at a tug of war with myself of whether or not I stand up for my friend, my peer, my coworker, my teammate, and be true to myself in that because that's who I am versus, man, how is this going to impact my work? And I know that they were an introvert. And I knew when they watched the video back, as it was a recorded meeting, that they were going to capture all of this and have to really take it in on their own. And man, what a burden to carry. And that was my version of corporate activism. But it's a burden. And there could be some legal ramifications, not to mention the bureaucracy that we experience. I can go on and on about the different burdens that I carry, but I don't have enough time. Okay. We don't have enough time. Lewis told me I have 40 minutes. So there's too many things, too many examples, and I don't want to share that. But imagine asking a drowning person not only to save themselves, but to also build a new boat for everyone else. Deborah shared in the chat, I appreciated my team members who rounded on me every day to make sure I was safe from our manager. That's beautiful support because we can't ask a drowning person to build a new boat for everyone else because they're drowning. I want you to take a look at this video. And Lewis, I don't know if the audio is going to come through, so I hope it does. And I want you to observe some of the burdens that this particular person in this video is experiencing. And then once the video is over, it's about a minute and 40 seconds. I want you to pour into the chat all of the burdens that you observed in this video. Take a look. Very powerful. So I'm going to look in the chat and I'm going to read. Gabrielle shared judgment, fear, insecurity, loneliness, guilt, power. Yes, I noticed all those things as well, right? Absolutely. What else? exclusion, disdain. Oh, some strong words, everybody. Yeah. The weight of others' assumptions and expectations. Ooh, you use the word weight, Beth. Yes, it's a weight. Bias, Carrie. Uncomfortable, Brittany. These are feelings that people carry. And I know that you all have had those experiences before, similar to this. This video, I chose it because there were no words. And the barriers and burdens that we all experience and that I experience don't necessarily need words. Carrie said the self-doubt of your value, unwelcome. These are all feelings that people carry around, and it shows up in our interviews. It shows up in, you know, the way we approach projects, right? Decisions we want to make, but we shy away from. The way we want to stand up for others, but sometimes don't. These are things that we experience. So thank you. Thank you for um, taking a moment to feel that. But there are some breakthroughs, y'all. Like, this is not just a sad training. It's not a training at all to just dwell on the negative things. There are breakthroughs that can happen. And I want to talk about them because they are how we refill our cups, right? It's how we replenish hope. And it is why all of us have taken the time to attend these sessions and take notes and ask questions and share resources and absorb information and want to broaden our horizons are the breakthroughs that we experience from doing this work. Breakthroughs in society where we can experience social cohesion, economic growth, enhanced social experiences, stronger communities. Oh, that there's strength in numbers. And that just fills me up. It fills my cup because when I and that's why I started my nonprofit ICU community because I when we are in community with one another, we have less fear. Now I can ask you questions without worrying if you're going to call me out because you know that I care. You know me personally because we are in the same circle. Imagine having that in an organization. Now I don't have as much fear being creative and being innovative. Now I want to put forward my best work because I don't think you're going to shut down some of my ideas and I could really be totally immersed in my work and enhance my performance. And organizational decision makers can broaden their market reach and engage their employees in a way where it's like, you're not just doing this because it's the trendy thing to do, it's the right thing to do. And then personally, there's greater understanding, personal growth, increased confidence, walking with our head held high, stronger relationships. Let me tell you something. When I started to be more curious, it really strengthened my relationship, even with my kids and my friends. So, this is not just how we're moving in workplaces. It's how we're feeding our relationships with the people that we care about, people that we love, and new people we want to introduce into our lives. And while we do all this, folks, we need a break, okay? Listen, we all need to break away sometimes. Now, I know that you are used to seeing Martin Luther King at a podium, but listen, he had to let loose too. And so do you. What do you do to let loose? How do you break free from all of this heaviness? Share in the chat some of your best practices. 'Cause let me tell you something. Princess Diana also agrees with Mr. King. We got to go ahead and let loose, let our hair down, and have a good time. Yes, spa day. I'm here for it. Golf. I'm here for it. Going on walks with friends. I'm here for it. Laughing. Oh my gosh, I just went to the comedy club improv the other day, and that was I was laughing from my gut, and I was like, "Ooh, I needed this so bad," because I don't even know that the joke was that funny. I just needed to laugh so much that I just laughed from the gut. Like, yes, laughter is important. My mountain biking, photography, yes, running, reading, making a point to get outside and letting that sun hit your skin. It is so important to nurture your efforts in inclusion work. Don't be afraid to set boundaries with work and life. You're the author. You're the pilot. You get to know when you've had enough. You know what your bandwidth is. Step away to recharge and do all the things you're sharing in that chat. Gardening, right? Cooking. Seek support through programs, and that can be any type of programs. It could be wellness programs. You may like to do yoga, knit. Maybe you want to learn something new. It's important to fill our cups because, like I said at the beginning, inclusion does not start with you, it starts with I. I want to thank every single one of you. I feel really, really good about what we talked about today. I hope you feel really good and you fill your cup. You've been soaking up knowledge all this week in this conference, all for a common reason, and that is to advocate and foster for more accessible and inclusive learning and work environments. And that is not easy work. Give yourself grace. Take a moment to do your favorite things. I see you. And I'm going to open up for questions. If you have any time at all that you would love to pour your thoughts about this presentation, please Google ICU Learning. Go ahead and provide a Google review and share your thoughts with me. Make me all fuzzy inside when you share your thoughts. Ideal referrals for me would be human resource professionals, organizations seeking team development, or customized courses. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat and just say thank you. I feel really good. I have goosebumps. I don't know if you do, but I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Deborah. That was wonderful. Let's see. There was one request. If you add the link to that video.
I absolutely can. If you wanna shoot me a direct message, I can send it to you, or, how else would you recommend that I share it, Lewis?
It's up to you. I mean, if you had it, you could post it in chat, or I can
Okay,
I
I
can
can
I
get
can
it.
put your LinkedIn profile in here. Let me do that in case somebody wants to message you directly. I'll do that anyway. So there is Deborah's LinkedIn profile. Make sure you connect with Deborah.
Yep, and I'm gonna
And
get that video right now queued
okay,
up
cool.
for you to share. Any other questions? Let's see. Here it is. I'm putting it in the chat right now. There's the video.
Thank you so
It's on
much.
YouTube. You're welcome.
All right, let me see any other questions. Let's see. Mark that one is answered. All right, so Nancy, hopefully you can see that link. And so inspirational, Deborah.
Oh, thank you. I am
Great.
flying out to you guys. I'll see you soon for our brunch and our coffee chats.
No, it was great for a Friday. It was a great for a Friday. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with this community. And I'm sure that we'll see you again. You have any conference appearances or anything like that coming up?
Well, yeah, I will be at the e-learning and technology showcase in Naperville, Illinois. That is on August 19th. You'll find that on my website if you want to look at what I have going on upcoming on my events page on www.iculearning.org. So that is my next conference that I will be at. Looking forward to anyone
Awesome.
who may be local.
All right, pasted your website in there in the chat.
Thank you.
And yeah, all right. Thanks, everybody. We've got one more session for today, and this one is actually more of a practical one. Maureen Boland is going to be um, showing us some strategies for creating accessible PowerPoint presentations. Nothing like wrapping things up with a nice pragmatic and practical um, presentation. So
Yeah,
stick around for that. That one starts at noon Pacific time, and hope to see you there. Thanks again, Deborah. Thanks,
absolutely.
everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you. See you soon.